this episode, I talk with Matt Drabble. Matt is a multi-award winning author who may have wrote one of the best werewolf novels ever, Full Moon. We talk about his new book, Full Moon 2, Silver Bullet, and we go down the rabbit hole of horror and metal. Had a really good time talking with Matt, a really cool person, and he knows how to write werewolves. I'm telling you, it's fucking super killer. So, after you're done with this episode, make sure you check out my fellow horsemen of the podcast Apocalypse, Everything Went Black podcast, Into the Necrosphere, the Necromaniacs podcast, Spitball Media, Iblis Manifestations, and the Soul Knox podcast. Also, check out the Horrorwolf 666 podcast Teespring store. I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, new design up that I came up with probably like last week, I think. I think it's pretty cool. So that's up there now. So make sure you check that out at www.thehorrorwolf666podcastcreatorspring.com. And that's where you find all the merch and everything. So, yep, that would be appreciated if you check that out. And if you like what you hear, make sure to leave me a rating on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to this podcast at. And that helps, get the podcast out there a bit more. So, and it's much appreciated. Hope you enjoy this episode, and thanks so much for listening. So, thanks for being on the podcast, Matt. And I'm hoping you're having a good weekend so far.
Yeah, not too bad. Just getting over COVID. So if I start coughing, you'll have to excuse me.
Yeah, no worries on that. Me and my wife went through COVID earlier this year, and it sucked. We were off for like 2 weeks with it, and didn't want to do anything. I was trying to play video games, having all that downtime, and I just felt like total shit.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It was definitely horrible. But yeah, I found out about you pretty recently. I just got done reading, I think, an Adam Neville book or whatever, and I was looking for something else to read. So I was searching, I believe it was the Kindle app or whatever. And I love werewolves. I named my podcast after werewolf stuff, and I ran into your book off of the Kindle store and stuff. I saw, Full Moon. I read the description and everything, and it had a little bio of you, and I gave it a check out and stuff. Fucking awesome, dude.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. It was my first stab at a werewolf novel. So I think it turned out okay. It seems to have sort of resonated with people, and it's probably been my biggest hit so far.
That's excellent. I gotta say, I've read a bunch of werewolf novels, seen a bunch of werewolf films and all, and this one is easily top 10 when it comes to all that. It's so fucking good. I can already see a movie coming from it,
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
What were your inspirations for doing Full Moon? I'm sure you have a love for monsters and stuff, but any other inspirations?
Like I said, really, when you're writing sort of in the horror genre, you kind of want to try and sort of hit those sort of basic targets, because your zombies or your werewolves, your vampires, your sort of various monsters. So what I most like to write is I like doing sort of ensemble pieces. So sort of multiple points of view, multiple characters. So I just like the idea more recently of putting sort of more of myself into different characters that I'm doing. So the last couple of books I've done, one called Crossfire, Full Moon, where the sort of the male protagonist was kind of sort of me, essentially, sort of the exaggerated version of me. So werewolves, gangsters stuck out in the full moon, monsters thrown in as well.
It fits in so well, and it reminds me a lot of Dog Soldiers, which is one of my favorite werewolf films. It has that kind of feel to it, with the way you describe the werewolves and stuff. Even though in your novel they actually you see them in their human form more often than what you do in Dog Soldiers and all. But I love that. I love that werewolf design that you described too. The ones that stand on 2 legs, the big menacing werewolf. That's the one I love. So.
Yeah. Big fan of Dog Soldiers like you, Neil Marshall stuff. Dog Soldiers, Descent.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just trying to sort of almost have a kind of hybrid, between sort of human and monster, and try and almost, turn humans into monsters, and monsters try and give them like a little bit of humanity.
Right. Yeah, I definitely caught that. There was monsters amongst the monsters, or some of like some of the gang members and stuff like that. You can definitely see who was monster and who wasn't, but you kind of feel sympathy too for some of the werewolf characters and everything. Like, some of them are just trying to like stay away from humanity and, do their thing. Then you got a few that want to kind of rebel against that and fucking, start dominating humanity.
Yeah, yeah. I always think, I think the best villains are characters that you can sort of almost empathize a little bit with. You can sort of see where they're coming from. You can almost understand what their motivations are. But then, you don't want to root for them to win either. They got to lose at some point.
Right. But yeah, like you said, being able to like feel for him just for a little bit, that really helps just bring you into the story more. Like, I couldn't put the book down. I think I got done with it in like 2 nights of reading or something like that. Like, usually I read before I go to bed, and yeah, I was just like, this is so fucking good.
Yeah, thanks. I think one of the things I've been trying to concentrate on more recently is sort of trimming things down, taking away sort of more of the sort of superfluous stuff. The sequel that I've just finished for Full Moon, out 20th of November, Full Moon 2 Silver Bullet. I think when I got through with sort of the initial first draft, I think I ended up taking out, sort of editing off about 14,000 words, just to kind of sort of trim it down and hopefully sort of keep the pace moving along. I think one of the problems that I've sort of found, I've got, I'm sure there's some sort of technical term for it, but I have this kind of omnipresent style when I'm writing, where my brain just kind of zeroes in on what I'm doing right now, and kind of, so I mean, if I'm doing if I put a character down for a bit, and for me it might be sort of 3 days since I left them, obviously for the reader it might be sort of 10 pages. So when I'm coming back 3 days later, I found I've got a very annoying habit of sort of doing more exposition, almost to remind myself what they were doing and why they're there, and what scenes they're in, what they've been through, where obviously the reader's looking at that saying, yeah, I fucking know that, man. I read it like 2 minutes ago.
Right.
A lot of what I'm trying to do is just sort of, trim some of that stuff down and maybe sort of keep the pace moving a little bit faster. Because like I said, the first book seems to have sort of resonated with people. People seem to have liked it. So, as much as I'd sort of like to indulge myself, I mean, I am trying to make a living as well.
Yeah, no, I totally love that. Like you said, it keeps the pace going. My favorite author probably overall is Stephen King, and as you know, he does have a bit of an issue when it comes to like overly describing things and not really trimming the fat off of his novels. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I get it, but
Yeah, same here, man. King's king, and long live the king, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. I mean, like I said, he's my favorite author of all time, but I do see that. I wouldn't say it's really a flaw. He's just very over descriptive, and sometimes it slows down everything. Like, it'd be like heading into something like super, exciting and everything. Then it gets down in the mud with some really over descriptive shit. And it's like, come on, man, let's speed up a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I often think, if King was trying to sort of come through now, and, if he's taking it or The Stand to a publisher, the first thing they're going to do is say, yeah, you need to drop about 30% of that. Kids today, man, I just don't think they're going to have the kind of patience to do sort of a 1,200 page novel.
Right. Yeah, it's a different time. I mean, with the phones and computers and all that shit. Mostly the phones and social media is like really fucked up people's concentration levels. Even my own. I just turned 38, but when I grew up, I didn't have a computer, none of that shit, and as I've gotten older and stuff, like these cell phones have kind of spoiled me on my like attention span. Like, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, I need to hurry up and see this. Hurry up. Like, come on, like a 15-second video. Oh, that's like, it's perfect. It's like a dopamine hit really fast and then it's gone. You know what I mean?
yeah. I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I find sort of my audience seem to be sort of middle-aged and upwards, really. I, you know, I think that when I get sort of, like everybody gets the occasional bad review, it tends to be sort of younger readers who've kind of started a book and nobody's got decapitated on the first page, so they've kind of switched off and, all right, yeah, that's not quick enough. What's next?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the slow burn too myself. Even though this book was not slow burn, it was pretty much action packed the whole time. But I'm also a fan of like the slow burn movies. I like, like slow, heavy, psychological, dark stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I always think, if I'm going to put a character in a perilous situation, if I'm going to risk their life, if they're going to die, if they're going to, go through hell, if they're going to get injured, if they're going to have to kind of fight through it, well, then obviously the reader would, you have to care about them.
Hmm.
And if I'm just saying, yeah, it is Bob and yeah, he's lost an arm, well, great. Sucks for Bob, but, I don't really know Bob. I don't know anything about him. Why should I care about him?
Do you outline and stuff before you get started with your novels or?
Uh, I've got a very kind of odd process. I think it's the sort of process where I don't like picking at it. I
Mm,
don't like picking at those threads because I'm quite superstitious. But I have loads of notebooks which are just kind of full of either story ideas or it's just some are just kind of titles that come to you and you think, oh, yeah, that make a good title. And then some are sort of fleshed out ideas. But I tend to know where I'm starting from, and I tend to know where I want to get to, and then most of the in between bit tends to kind of evolve as I'm going along. So, I mean, quite often I'll get to I'll get to a part with a character, or I'll get to a part with a situation, and I'll write it, and then suddenly I'll think to myself, oh yeah, hang on a minute. Oh yeah. If I do that with them, then that kind of actually links in nicely with something I did sort of 100 pages ago at the start, and oh yeah, that will tie together. So I think
hmm
it's kind of a subconscious almost planning that I'm doing as I go along.
That's cool. Yeah, I've written some short stories in my time, and I did make an attempt to write a full-fledged novel a few years ago, and I was going with like an outline, which I did like a small outline, like really super rough and stuff, and the further I got into my writing, like the further confused I got with things, like, oh, is this supposed to go here? Like, I was like, I can't remember what this character's supposed to do. I'm like, I should
Yeah.
have written that down in the outline and stuff, like it's a lot to take on. Short stories for me are pretty easy, but if I'm trying to write something super long, it becomes a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I've been doing this for, I don't know, 10, 11 years now, maybe something like that. And I,
Hmm.
I think, if I remember rightly, the very first book I tried to do, I had a great big kind of cork board, and I had all these post-it notes, and they were sort of, this is where I'm going. This is sort of almost like planning out a screenplay, like a storyboard.
Hmm.
And the first I found is that when I had everything kind of planned out, when I spent sort of a week or two, just planning the whole entire story, my brain just kind of thinks, well, you've done it now. You don't need to write it. You know where it's going. You know what's happening, and that's all pretty boring. But I very quickly found that it's much more interesting for me if I let things develop, if I let things evolve. And quite often I'll find that I'll have a description in a notebook somewhere about a book. And then when I've written the book and I'll go back to the description that I started with, the two things have very little in common. I've kind of diverged way off what I thought they were going to be.
Hmm. Yeah, I think also going back to Stephen King, I think I've heard in an interview before that he doesn't really do the whole outline thing, if I'm not mistaken. He just kind of just writes and lets the story goes where it goes. I'm like, how in the
Yeah.
fuck do you do that, man? Like, especially with like the stand and stuff. Like, it's so long.
Oh,
Like, I mean, this is insane to think about that.
yeah. Oh, definitely. I always remember in The Shining when Jack Torrance is working on his play, and he obviously, as part of his sort of descent into madness, where he starts off the play with, his hero and his villain, and then as he's writing it, and he starts this descent into madness, suddenly he starts identifying with the teacher, and he starts thinking that this kind of hero student he had is now suddenly becoming almost the bad guy. He becomes a villain. And I find that sometimes when I'm writing, sometimes sort of a subsidiary character, something that was just going to be minor, will suddenly become sort of the main protagonist, because suddenly you find something interesting that you sort of grab onto. And maybe your initial protagonist, suddenly you're thinking they're a bit vanilla now.
Right. Yeah, I totally feel that. And yeah, like I said, that was just amazing. Like you can just keep on writing and, but I think with King too, I think back in the day, he had some like substances to help him, motivate his brain, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, King is king. Only person right now that comes second to King in my eyes when it comes to authors is Clive Barker. He's another one that just creates like these giant fucking macabre universes.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Clive Barker. Yeah. Hellraiser and Books of Blood and all these types of things. Yeah, he's definitely incredibly sort of creative, I find. Same with somebody like Neil Gaiman.
Oh yeah, I love Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, the sort of the Sandman sort of stuff that he does, and these kind of fantastic sort of universes and these landscapes that they create.
Yeah, those three right there are like three of the top for me, I think. And it's going to be sad, they're all getting older and stuff. Like when they quit writing, it's going to be a sad day. Clive Barker, he's supposed to be working on something now from what I heard. I'm not sure because he just got over some health issues not that long ago, but he's doing a whole lot better now. So I'm hoping there's some more shit going on with him. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. But like we said before, I mean, I just don't know if these sort of guys now, if they were trying to break into the industry now, you just don't know if they would sort of resonate with publishers. I don't know if they would, the dollar signs, would they be there? Would they be high enough? Would publishers be willing to sort of invest in something sort of that big, that in depth?
Yeah, you're totally right. I don't know. So we're really lucky that we were born when we were, you know what I mean? Like we get to experience the full power of King and Barker and all, and Neil Gaiman and stuff. Like who knows in the next 10 years who's gonna be like the number one author and stuff. It could be like some little ass 50-page short or something that's like, because the attention span nowadays is just so horrible.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, you do worry about sort of, I hate to sound like an old fart, but you do wonder about sort of next generations. And like you said, sort of attention spans now are so short, and people want everything just sort of straight away.
I try to, like on the weekdays after I get off of work and all, I try to like take myself back to the 90s. Like I'd be watching like Seinfeld or like any kind of like 90s sitcoms or like X-Files, I'm like I'm teleporting myself back in that time period because like I really like the 90s,
Right, yeah. Well, I'm a bit older than you, so I mean X-Files I love. The great sort of things to put on when you're working. The Seinfeld I love, and for me sort of I'm pushing 50 now, so when I was my sort of formative years, when I'm sort of 12, 13, 14, 15, you're looking at sort of mid to late 80s and then into the early 90s. So, I mean, I just love 80s stuff. The first film ever really made a huge impression on me was when I went to see Lost Boys at the cinema.
Oh, hell yeah. That's one of my favorite films. Love Lost Boys.
Yeah, so, I mean, me and all my friends, we all went out and raided the local charity shops. I think you call them thrift stores over there. Yep. So we went out, bought big long black coats that we would sort of wear all year, even in the summer and stuff. And that's sort of, the fashions and those kind of touchstones for me. I mean, that's what I try and write now. I like my horror to be fun. I like it to be enjoyable. I like it to have a bit of a sense of humor. I like it at times to sort of have its tongue in its cheek, like Lost Boys, like Vamp, like Fright Night, these sort of things.
Oh, you mentioned Vamp. Vamp is super underrated, I think. That's a fucking great vampire movie.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
You just don't hear much about it, you know. You always hear about, the big ones like Lost Boys, From Dusk Till Dawn, stuff like that, but you really don't hear nothing about Vamp. And I recommended, because on my Instagram and stuff, I do like Friday recommendations of what you should be watching. I throw out some weird shit most of the time. And I think last year I recommended Vamp, and I got a bunch of people checking that out that's never seen it before. I'm like, it's really fucking good.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I always think, in a movie, if you've got heart in a movie, if you've got chemistry in the movie between the actors, for me, that just goes such a long way.
No, totally. I mean, that makes you kind of like fall in love with that movie and stuff when you got people you can actually like, root for and stuff and believe.
Oh yeah, I mean, Dee Pfeiffer as well in that film was just so cute.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, such an underrated movie. It needs to get a really good Blu-ray treatment because I don't think that's had like a really cool release or anything. I think maybe Arrow or something needs to throw that out there. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I got a copy actually. I got a Blu-ray copy of Vamp. There's got a lot of great sort of documentaries on it, a lot of sort of behind the scenes things and commentaries. So there's definitely one sort of this side of the pond. I don't know if there's one over there.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing one being released over here, so I'm not sure who put the one out that you have. You know?
No, not off the top of my head. No.
Okay. It sounds like something Arrow would do because Arrow's really good, and I think they're around your neck of the woods too, like their home base.
Yeah, yeah. I think the same people did the Fright Night one as well. So I mean, these things are just full of stuff, Like we say, I mean, these sort of movies are just my jam, stuff like a lot of Sam Raimi stuff. I mean, Army of Darkness for me, I mean, that's the movie for me where that depends, if you get Ash Williams in Army of Darkness, well, then, we can be friends.
Dude, I totally agree with you. I love Army of Darkness.
I mean, this is a character who is equal parts, ultimate wisecracking badass and idiot doofus who screws everything up, often at exactly the same time.
Dude, Bruce Campbell is like, he's a godlike figure. You know what I mean? Like, Bruce Campbell's great. Anything he's in, I'm going to watch, even if it's like a drama. Just having him there because he's his own, he is the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely. I think he's one of those guys, that when you find someone like that and when you discover them, while, you kind of feel bad that he didn't sort of make it big personally, it kind of adds to that sort of cult thing where you think, yeah, but he didn't get big, he didn't get mainstream, but he's ours. He belongs to us. And that makes it kind of more special.
He is our cult hero, pretty much. He's like the Brad Pitt of cult movies,
Yeah, definitely.
Did you enjoy the Ash versus Evil Dead TV series?
Yeah, yeah. Again, it was still because I think because there's so much of sort of Campbell is Ash and Ash is Campbell. He could just sort of slip into that show and it just felt the same. I think, Sam Raimi sort of was behind the scenes with it. So that magic is still there.
Yeah, it was like a comfort show for me because it took me back to like Evil Dead 2 feelings and Army of Darkness, all that stuff. Like it was right there. It's like they didn't really skip a beat. It was just a continuation. Like it felt like that the same universe was there. Weren't trying to change it up or anything like that.
That's it. I mean, he just straps that chainsaw on and off we go.
Yeah, I was sad when they ended it. I was like, oh, I think they did I think 3 or 4 seasons and it ended and I was fucking sad, man. I was like, damn it, that was like one of the best shows on TV.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was 3, and then they were the idea for the 4th one was at the end of, I think it's season 3, at the end of that one where he goes forward in time again, and you got this kind of apocalyptic sort of Mad Max land. But then, so that was sort of the plan apparently. But then the TV company said no, it's just too expensive. So
yeah, they did have a pretty big budget for that show. Like special effects were on point, and it was a big show. It was like a movie every episode,
Yeah, oh, definitely. Then I guess they need all their money for shitty reality TV shows.
Oh God, I hate reality TV shows, man. They're the worst. But luckily, it seems like in the past couple of years we have so much good shit to watch on all these different streaming channels. Like they've been hitting hard like past couple of years, especially like Apple TV's had a lot of really good originals. Hulu, Netflix has some good stuff. Shudder, I pretty much have everything subscription wise, just because I'm a maniac when it comes to watching movies and stuff. That's what I do. So.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think competition sort of that breeds kind of better minds, better invention, better innovative stuff.
Yeah, and it's so much out there too. Like they used to tell you, like if you're cutting your cable and all, like oh you can switch and do these apps and everything and save you money. Well, it's kind of bullshit now when you have like 50 fucking apps and they're all like charging $10 a piece.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. What are some of your like favorite werewolf films? Being going back to Full Moon and stuff. What are some of your favorite werewolf films?
Oh, I think you gotta start with stuff like The Howling,
Hmm.
American Werewolf in London. I mean, Landis's movie is just fantastic. I think just kind of walks that kind of black comedy line.
Hmm.
I mean, some of the I remember, God, it's the early '80s. So, I mean, I would have been sort of about 12, something like that, when I saw that one. And the scene where the kind of the dream sequence scene where he's at home with the family watching the Muppets, and then the sort of for some reason kind of Nazi werewolves come in and start killing the rest of his family. I mean, that just stayed with me, something chronic.
That's a brutal scene, and it's out of nowhere. You don't see that coming. It's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the other bits where he's sort of running around the forest and where he sort of wakes up with the sort of blue face, looking like more of a vampire out of Salem's Lot than a werewolf. You kind of get all that, but then like I said, the one that comes out of nowhere with his family getting gunned down with Uzis and people getting their throats slit over the dinner table. I mean, that's one of those things, one of those scenes that just kind of stick in your head, I think.
Yeah, for me, when it comes, American Werewolf in London is my probably number one favorite werewolf movie of all time, and one of my favorite films of all time, like top five, maybe top three. But the scene that really got me as a kid, being I didn't get to see it in the theater, I saw it on VHS, but at a very, very young age. But the transformation scene, which is still the best werewolf transformation scene out of any movie, I think that shit stayed with me. It was so horrifying.
Yeah, oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, we're in sort of we're in the CGI world now where some CGI is okay, and sometimes you'll go and watch a $200-300 million movie and the CGI just sucks ass.
Hmm.
And then you look at sort of when you can do practical effects like that. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, the kind of hard work and the dedication it must take to do these things sort of inch by inch, sort of millimeter of film by millimeter of film. It's just I think it just then shows on the screen.
Oh, it totally does. And like you said, it kills any kind of like CGI transformation, which seems to be popular now with a lot of monster movies. And like you said,
Mm.
CGI done sparsely, going with actual practical effects to kind of like, kind of help it out a little bit. That's fine if it's done right. But when it's like an over CGI, like transformation or werewolf, I can't get behind that. I'm thinking
Yeah.
back to the Van Helsing movie, actually.
Oh,
With
yeah.
what's his face that played Wolverine, Hugh Jackman. That werewolf was absolutely horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I think so many of the sort of good movies now that you get, and you'll get one of these kind of good sort of slow pace things. What did I see recently? There's one called Cobweb, I think it was called, that I saw recently.
Oh, that's a good
Uh,
one.
yeah, and you'll get these nice kind of slow burn things, and right up until the end, and then they'll just whack out some kind of CGI sort of bug and bucket monster thing, and you just think, you're better off not showing it at all. If you can't do it properly, man, just don't show it at all. We don't always need to kind of have it rammed in our faces when the CGI is just going to be bad.
Exactly. Like the mystery is what's scary about it. It's like with Jaws, like you don't really see the shark a lot, you know. You see like a fin here, like a shot here, but it's like, the doom that's underneath the water, like, the oncoming fucking storm of horror, you know. I don't want to see it. I want to know it's there, like that it's the presence of it that scares me.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, with something like Jaws, where they ended up, what was an absolute nightmare of a shoot because they couldn't get the fucking shark thing to work at all, ended up sort of being the best thing that ever happened to the movie because they couldn't use it. They could barely use the thing
Hmm.
because they built the mechanical shark in like a swimming pool, and everything worked fine. Yeah, great. And then they got out to sea in salt water, and then the salt water just screwed all the mechanics up.
Hmm.
Like you said, that was the best thing that ever happened to the movie because you barely see it.
Yeah, and it makes it that much, that much more scarier than, what it could have been without it. It could have been like a Jaws 2. I think Jaws 2 they showed the sharks a whole lot more and they didn't really look very great, you know. They were a bit shoddy.
Uh, but I think this is the idea, when you get a bunch of suits in the movie involved. I mean, geez, something that drives me nuts. You'll have a studio and they'll see some independent movie and they'll go after the director and they'll say, "Oh yeah, we love what you do. We love how you do it. We love this kind of dark, gritty, earthy, realistic vibe you have in your films, and we'd love to have you on board with sort of a major kind of comic book franchise." And then about 5 minutes into filming, the suits are down at the studio saying, "Yeah, but does it have to be so dark? Does it have to be so gritty? Could we not liven it up? Could we not have some jokes in it? I know you've got like a realistic kind of 45-year-old actress, but could we not get a skinny 20-year-old in? I don't know if you have the phrase over there. You don't buy a dog and bark yourself."
No, that's a new phrase. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, but I mean, stuff like that just drives me nuts. When you get sort of a talented person and you bring them in for their talent, and then you just want to throw it all out the window.
Yeah, I think that's garbage. They were gonna do a remake of Blade. That was in the talks, and I think it finally got canceled. I'm a huge fan of the original two Blade movies because I think they're like two of the most underrated, two of the most underrated and the best Marvel movies ever made. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
so dark and gritty and shit. And
yeah,
with the
yeah,
remake, they're gonna lighten it up and shit. It's gonna fit
yeah,
into the Marvel universe and all that crap.
yeah.
So I'm glad that got canceled. And I've always said Wesley Snipes is always going to be Blade to me, anyways. And he was going to be involved in the new one, so it would have been disappointing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're not that old. They're not that kind of far gone. He's not that old.
No. So I'm
It
I'm
just
just I'm not a fan of that new stuff like the new Marvel Universe shit or whatever. It's too bright and sunny for me.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. I mean, these things that you watch nowadays. I mean, I'm a huge comic book geek, and it always drives me nuts. You watch these films, and you just think, just take sort of what 1% of your CGI budget and hire a proper writer.
Hmm.
Then you see what you can produce. I mean, when Nolan did the Batman trilogy,
Hmm.
and he did Dark Knight, and you're looking there and you're thinking, okay, you've got a popcorn summer movie blockbuster subject matter, and you employ a proper writer, you employ a proper director, and they make a proper film.
Mm.
And you think, this has to be the way forward. Get proper
Right.
people in, get proper writers, get proper directors, and just produce a good quality film. Everything doesn't have to be Fast and Furious. Everything doesn't have to be, yeah, we'll talk a bit here, yeah, blah blah blah. Next action sequence, blow shit up. We'll talk a bit more, blah blah blah. Next sequence, oh, look, we're flying a fucking car to the moon now.
Did you enjoy the new Batman film that recently came out? What was it called? The
Yeah,
Batman, I think it was.
yeah, yeah, Pattinson, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there you are. You get a guy like Matt Reeves, the director. They like what he did with the Planet of the Apes stuff, and you think, great. So if you're going to have a top guy in, if you're going to have a decent filmmaker in, let him make a decent film. And
Hmm.
thankfully, I mean, it's one of those films I always think that kind of looks like he was left alone. It looks like the suits kind of stayed out of it and just let a good filmmaker make a good film. I mean, Colin Farrell in that as Penguin. I remember, oh God, years and years ago, early 90s, going to see Carlito's Way at the cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this is sort of early 90s, so this is sort of pre-internet. So you used to get all your information, you'd buy like a movie magazine if you wanted to read about what was coming out. And I remember going to see the movie, Carlito's Way, loving it. And then I remember a couple of days later, I remember seeing some sort of interview and people were talking about Sean Penn in it. Mm-hmm. And I genuinely sat there and thought, I don't remember Sean Penn in that. I can't remember him being, who the hell is Sean Penn in the film? And of course, when you go back and sort of look afterwards, you think, holy shit, that was Sean Penn. I never recognized him. He didn't seem like Sean Penn. And then when I saw Colin Farrell do the Penguin, it was exactly the same thing. You would not know that was Colin Farrell.
Oh, no, not at all. Nope.
Just an actor who sort of embodied a character. And I know they're doing sort of a Penguin TV show. I think they're planning on doing a kind of police procedural Gotham show as well, or within the Matt Reeves universe. I'm just a Bat freak. I love Batman.
Yeah, Batman's one of my favorites too. He's so dark and brooding out of all the superhero stuff. Like Batman's like my favorite. Also, like right up with Batman, I like Spawn a lot too. Spawn is fucking awesome.
Yeah, McFarlane. Yeah.
I'm still waiting on that Spawn film to come out that he's been promising us for like 10 years now. I don't think that's ever going to come out.
No, I mean the original's a bit of a mess, to be honest. There's a decent animated Spawn show. There's a bit sort of anime in terms of the sort of production and the style of it. Yeah,
I remember that one. That one was really good. That appeared on HBO, I think, in the 90s, and it's still on HBO now. And that's like one of the best representations of Spawn because it's pretty much the comic, thrown on a TV show.
Yeah, I mean, I think I find a lot of the DC, especially a lot of the animated movies they do, tend to be a lot better than your movies just because of the budgets. I mean, you spend $200 million on a Batman movie. When you boil down to it, Batman's a cold son of a bitch. I mean, he is just another bastard because he has to be. Because he's just a guy in a suit and he has to make these sort of decisions and he doesn't have friends. He has kind of allies and he has sort of child soldiers that he brings into his war. So if you spend $200 million making a Batman movie, you're not really going to sort of show him as kind of dark and as cold and uncaring as I always think the character is.
No, I totally agree with that. And speaking of making him not dark and brooding, there's a Batman versus Superman crap. I don't like Affleck as Batman, and I just hate that whole universe. It doesn't feel right to me. And Affleck as Batman just doesn't do it for me.
No, I mean Snyder's take on Batman v Superman seemed to be, Superman's dark and Batman's a little bit darker. Rather than the whole point of Batman and Superman is that they are complete polar opposites, Batman is vengeance, he's punishment, and Superman is this kind of beacon of light and hope and justice.
Yeah, I've never been a Superman fan. I've read a couple things as a kid, and it's never really done it for me. I think the only thing I like with Superman is when he was fighting the whole Doomsday saga. I thought Doomsday was really cool. But I just never found him. Yeah. He's like Mr. Goody Two Shoes,
Yeah, it's hard to sort of grasp on. I always think to a character like Superman, who's kind of so overpowered. There's very little kind of danger. There's very little sort of threat. I always feel. I mean, the Batman is literally just a guy in a suit. Bruce Wayne can literally just get hit by a bus crossing the road tomorrow.
Yep, he is just a man with really good prep skills. He prepares for everything really good.
Yeah, I mean, I always think that's kind of I mean, his whole sort of personality, he is a sort of borderline sociopath. There's this just great big giant black hole in the center of Bruce Wayne that sort of is still this kind of scared, terrified sort of 8-year-old boy who saw his parents die. I mean, I always think, I don't want to go off on tangents here, talk about Batman. I always,
That's cool.
for me, I always think that Alfred is probably, to me, I always think Alfred's one of the most important kind of characters in that whole story, in that whole universe. Because I always think you take Alfred away from Batman, and you've got Frank Castle, you've got the Punisher. You've got a guy who's just going to go out and he is just going to kill people. He's going to kill criminals. That would be his kind of method of dealing with Gotham. And I always think Alfred is kind of the one thing that is sort of from when he was a child has kind of is instilled this kind of a moral code. But I always think that there's part of his no-kill policy as well is that it's too easy. It's too easy to kill, It's harder. It's more important. It's sort of this kind of rigid code he has to not kill. And I always think, like I said, I think you take Alfred away, you got Frank Castle.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. I could totally see that. Yeah, I never thought about that till you just said that. That totally makes 100% sense to me. Have you ever thought about doing any graphic novels or anything, or have you done any graphic novels?
I did. I did a novel called Capes, which is a sort of a kind of superhero thing that I did a couple of years ago, which I quite liked. I pretty much enjoyed doing that. Which is the trouble is, you write a dark, realistic superhero film with sort of horror themes, and you drag these people down into a really realistic world, and of course the first thing you're going to hear is Watchmen. So it's kind of hard to do that without it being Watchmen.
Right.
But I had my stab at it with Capes, which I liked. I liked how it turned out, but I think that was a bit of an overly long novel. But yeah, I would like to have a stab at a graphic novel. I think I had some different ideas. I had an idea for somebody who had kind of a limited number of lives. So maybe it would be 1,000, maybe it would be 100,000, something like that. But that they would have this kind of period of kind of just, delving into sort of wasting them, and sort of I always pictured it sort of in the 70s with the drugs and just sort of the endless partying and the selfishness. And then by the time they sort of come to kind of start helping people, or maybe working for like an agency or something, they would have lost track of how many lives they had left. So now every time they went on a mission and they died, they wouldn't know if that was the last time. They wouldn't know, okay, this might be my last life, or it might not be because I've lost track of how many times I died. There's something along those lines. I had sort of a rough kind of sketch for a graphic novel.
Oh, that sounds really killer. Man, you should definitely maybe pick that up again one day. Like, that's a really, really good idea.
Yeah. I might start sort of looking into something like that. I might start looking for like an artist to sort of pair up with.
I know a few good artists and stuff. If you're ever interested, I could send your way. Like, I know some pretty cool artists. So.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to me like graphic novels and comics and stuff are making a comeback, which I think is really cool because I fucking love comics and all that stuff. So it's good to see that coming back around now. Yeah.
I mean, I've got a room here at home, which is like, we had an extension built on the house. We had sort of a utility room, and I needed an office. And then the third room is my kind of man cave, which is just full to the brim of kind of collectible figures and to the Funko stuff. And I've got walls of graphic novels.
Yeah, it sounds like my podcast slash music room I'm in right now. Like I got shit all over the walls. I got amps everywhere. I got Funkos everywhere. I got like 20 different editions of the movie Mandy, which is my favorite movie. I have like VHS versions of that, Blu-ray versions. I got it on vinyl. Like I have the vinyl for Mandy. All kinds of crazy shit surrounds me in my
Yeah.
podcast music room.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say we're lucky if our wives let us have that. Let's have the space. Mine doesn't like it much in here, but
Oh,
you did
my
agree.
wife's all down for this kind of stuff. We just got back from a 3-day horror convention. My wife also she likes horror movies and heavy metal just like I do. So we're like
Oh,
totally down with everything. So the whole house is pretty much a fucking horror movie and like a metal
yeah.
museum when you come in.
Oh, that sounds like heaven. I wish mine was.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like it's me and her like coming together like that is kind of powerful and stuff. Because like I said, that's usually not the norm. Like usually the other person would be like into something totally different, and like, oh, well, I don't like this or you like this, but we have a lot of
Yeah.
common interests, and heavy metal is what really brought us together. So
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
yeah, I was think when I was reading on your Amazon bio, you're a metalhead as well. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, I've
Nice.
I took the plunge a couple of months ago now, and I had all my hair cut off. I had
Oh
long
man.
hair for about 20 odd years, and then we had a really kind of hot summer spell, and
Hmm.
I just got at some point I just thought, oh, I just can't be doing with this anymore, and then I had it all cut off and regretted it ever since.
Oh man, yeah, I could not do that. I've been growing my hair out for the past like 10 years, and it's past my ass now. And I work outside. I just fucking throw that shit in a ponytail and tuck it in my shirt if I have to. Like I'm not cutting my fucking hair. Like I can't do it. I know it's hot as shit, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah, don't do it, brother. You will regret it. Trust me.
Oh no, I'm never doing it. I'm only time I would ever cut my hair like all the way if I'm like having like a fucking what's his name from Strapping Young Lad when he had like that skullet go on, we had like the long hair then like bald in the middle. If that should ever happen, I'm gonna have to cut my hair. But we're looking pretty good on that right now, so I'm good. Yeah, I'm not rocking a skillet. So, what are some of your favorite bands?
uh, I think like a lot of older guys, that we tend to get sort of stuck almost, the sort of Maiden, AC/DC, Metallica, Megadeth, all the kind of sort of stuff that I grew up with. And
Mm,
then I think as you get older, kind of your library kind of starts shrinking down. So you start to, I hate being old. I hate being sort of, I'm not going to listen to anything new. I'm not going to listen to any new bands. Nothing's as good as it used to be. So I've been kind
uh,
of forced myself recently to open up to sort of newer stuff I hadn't heard before. So stuff like Bring Me the Horizon or Don Broco. I've been listening to a lot of Beartooth recently, who I quite like.
mhm.
The sort of metal and rock is kind of it's still, Skin Dread, stuff like that. I mean, it's still all I listen to really. I mean, sometimes you might want to go a bit softer. You might want to go a bit sort of, I don't know, Springsteen down
Oh, I
to
love
that sort of.
Springsteen. Hell yeah.
It's still, to musicians should be musicians, man. Musicians should write music. They should play music. They should perform music. And when
Mhm.
they write stuff, it should mean something. Even if we don't get always what it means, it should mean something. It should mean something to the guy who wrote it and to the guy who performs it, and then I can respect it.
I totally agree with that. It's got to like, or you're not gonna feel it. Like, if you hear some bullshit ass song that was just thrown out there for the sake of throwing a song out there, you know it. There's no heart behind it. You can totally feel that in the performance.
Yeah, I mean, stuff that just people will whack out on a computer, sitting in a bedroom. It's got no heart. It's got no soul.
Right. I do some bedroom stuff now when it comes to music. Like I was in a full on band, studio recording all that stuff for about 16, 17 years of my life, heavy metal band. But in the
Right.
past few years, I have been getting into keyboards and stuff. So I got my own like, I guess you would call it like ambient, like synth wave horror soundtrack shit that I do. I go under the name of it is Abraxas Horn, which is inspired from the film Mandy. So I do that stuff in my music room. This is me, a keyboard, my computer, and I got some mixing stuff from speakers and everything like that. So, but there is a lot of heart behind it. But I don't. Yeah, I'm used to doing the studio recording shit for all those years, and that's a whole different story.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are you doing? Sort of like Carpenter on steroids, that sort of stuff? John
Yes,
Carpenter on.
exactly. I had a friend of mine saying, good friend of mine said, "Yeah, you're like the next John Carpenter." I was like, yeah, I wish, but that's definitely a huge inspiration. Like John Carpenter, the Twin Peaks, like all the soundtrack from Twin Peaks, TV show, movie, and all that stuff. All that like plays a big factor in what I do.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm with you there.
It's a new thing for me. I've only been doing that for maybe 2 or 3 years now. I'm like, well, I'm not doing the full band stuff anymore. So need to find something else to like throw my creativeness on, out there in the world. So I'm like, I picked up a keyboard and started fucking playing that.
Yeah, man. I mean, we all need an outlet.
Yeah, it's a good outlet, and it keeps me from turning on my two full stacks and getting me kicked out of the townhouse that we live in now. So. Yeah, I have two big ass PV full stacks, and if I turn those on in like one or two, I would get us kicked out of here. So, but I do still play guitar. Like guitar is still a big part of my life. I have a little practice amp that I can turn at a decent volume without getting us kicked out and stuff like that. And I do record some guitar stuff into my laptop and all just for fun, just to fuck around with things. So gotta, still keep good at my craft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you play any instruments or?
No, no, that sort of thing, I think most guys we all have that thing where we think we'd like to,
Hmm.
I think I'd always have liked to have played. I'd always liked to have played guitar. I get some sort of arthritis in my fingers now, which obviously sort of typing all day long doesn't help.
Uh, no.
But yeah, it
Yeah.
is
Well,
one of my regrets. I think I would have liked to have learned to play.
yeah. It's a big like stress reliever for me, man. If I just come here and start fucking around on my guitar and stuff, it just kind of melts the day away.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
But it's cool. You kind of like with your writing from like Full Moon and stuff. There's like kind of a metal like influence there. The undertone. There's like a metal sensibility to it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I say I've been doing this about 10, 11 years now, so I hopefully there's sort of more of me that kind of comes into my work. The more you sort of connect with what you're doing, hopefully, the more of you comes out the other side.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, and with your work and stuff. With the sequel that's coming out, you said November 20th, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's out for pre-order now, 99
Mhm.
cents. Coming out November 20th.
Nice. And is that going to take place right after the first book, or is there like a time shift
It's
between the two, or?
Yeah, it's about a year.
Mhm.
So there's about a year between the end of the first book and then the start of the second book. So
What?
it's all kind of about pulling the characters, kind of some of them more reluctantly than others, kind of back into kind of the world that they sort of part stepped in, the world that they've sort of part helped create. So I mean, Clay obviously feels this responsibility
Mhm.
that he feels that they can't turn away. Whereas Safi's a bit more kind of, we've done enough, you've done enough, you've given enough. We've got this kind of, little existence that we've kind of eked out for ourselves, and maybe we shouldn't kind of go poking the bear or poking the wolf as it was, and sort of sticking our heads back into a hornet's nest again. But
Is
yeah,
this
I'm pretty good with how it turned out.
Is this going to expand on the first book like world wise? Is it kind of like a world building type thing? Like with the first book, it was it took place pretty much on like the farm area and stuff like that, and a few things here. It never really reached the city. Do we like kind of go into the city with this one and get a little bit bigger, or?
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, at the start of this one, Clay and Safi are sort of living out in the forest, surrounded by nobody, keeping away from everybody. Well, Clay sort of gets a handle on sort of what he is and what he might be, but of course, they don't really understand a lot of the rules around it, a lot of the risks as well around it.
Hmm.
So then you've also got obviously Lulu, who's the granddaughter of the gangster. So she's got her big plans.
Oh yeah, that's
Uh,
right. Yeah.
so then what you've got are basically sort of things getting out of control. We've got some new characters in there, and hopefully people enjoy it. Hopefully, it's another plenty of action, plenty of kind of fast pace to it, plenty of storyline,
Are you?
some horror, some tears, some sad bits, some twists in the tail.
Do you have any plans of doing any physical editions of this book or the last book or?
What do you mean?
Uh, oh, wait a minute. Wait, this book here, it's not going to be just digital, right? It's going to be physical and digital.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There can be the paperback copies. I mean, I think when when I first started, I mean, my most favorite thing to do was to get a paperback copy. I'm looking at them now actually on
Nice.
my shelf. I mean, yeah, I got to be honest. When I very first started, it never occurred to me that anybody would read anything. You just
Hmm.
kind of write yourself and you put something out there and you kind of forget about it. And then you start getting feedback and suddenly it's, oh, holy shit. There's somebody on the other end of this.
Yeah, it's always a good feeling when you find out that people care about what you do. It's like when I do the podcast stuff, I'm like, oh, there's people out there that like to listen to my boring voice. That's awesome. you know?
That's it, because you don't sort of have that. I mean, I sit in my office at home and my wife goes off to work in the morning and I see her off and then I don't sort of really see anybody else or talk to anybody else for sort of the rest of the day until she comes home again. So you kind of forget that there are actually other real people out there who are sort of reading what you do and hopefully liking what you do, and some people will hate what you do.
Well, for us werewolf fans, I think Full Moon and the sequel are going to hit the spot for us. And like I said, I'm an avid werewolf fan, like of the whole genre, movies, books, and all that stuff. And this is like easy top 10. Yeah, if you're a werewolf fan, this is something not to be missed for sure.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, man. Like, yeah, I'm trying to help spread the word too, and tell my friends and posting up on social media. And I do the same thing when this one comes out. After I check it out and everything, I'll be spreading the word on that as well.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, thanks.
You said you also have your own website now too, besides like Amazon and all that stuff, correct?
Yeah. People can find me on mattdrabble.co.uk.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I know I need to get me an actual physical copy of both of these books because I have the other one on Kindle that I was reading on my tablet and stuff, and it's never really the same reading on a tablet than reading an actual book. It's just not the
Yeah,
same.
yeah. I know what you mean. I'm still old school. If I'm reading something, I like to have it in my hands. I like to turn a page.
Only reason I do the Kindle stuff most of the time is because our lighting is horrible where we live at. Like the lighting sucks. So me and my wife both have like one of these portable LED lights that you can like pin on the back of your book and it lights up the whole thing. Like that's how bad our lighting is. So I get the Kindle. I'm like, oh, I can turn the brightness up. This is great. I can see what I'm reading here. But it's still a bit of an eye strain when it comes to these like Kindles and stuff. Like it fucks me up after a while. Like if I'm reading a book, I'm good to go. But I guess it's like the light that emanates from the Kindles and all kind of strains your eyes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, trying to read sort of, graphic novels on a Kindle is just a nightmare.
Yeah, it really is. And do you use Comixology for your graphic novels? Have you used that before?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I was looking into that a little while ago when I was sort of sketching out plans and stuff. But like I said, I
I
mean,
totally recommend it.
yeah.
I think it's like $5 a month, and right now I'm reading the whole. What was the fuck? I'm having a brain fart. Oh, From Hell. I'm reading the whole From Hell graphic novel series, and it's a ton of it. I don't know if you've read the actual graphic novel From Hell, but it's pretty good.
Oh, the Alan Moore.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a lot different than the fucking movie.
Yeah.
Didn't
With
realize that.
Johnny Depp's dodgy accent.
Mm-hmm. Good movie though. It was great. Super dark. I mean, it was good for its time. I haven't revisited From Hell in many, many years, so I might look back on it and it might not be worth the shit anymore. But I remember back then I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think if someone like Alan Moore, he's going to give you good bones of a story to start with. So you can't go that far.
Right. But this is my first read through of the actual novel and stuff, and I'm about I guess halfway through. But it's good. It's very descriptive. It's like a history lesson on top of a graphic novel, you know.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I haven't. I don't think I've ever read that one through.
Yep, that's on Comixology for free. Like if you do their monthly thing, which is like $5 or $6 a month, this is included on that, and they got a ton of really good free comics. And whatever comics you buy from like the Kindle store or whatever or Amazon, it goes straight to the Comixology app, so you have all your library right there.
All right. Yeah, I'll check that out.
It's like the Netflix of comics. But it's definitely pretty cool, man. Like, I don't know. I have a Kindle Fire that I use for my comic reading, and the colors really pop on this one. I got like the big 10-inch one where, you can see everything really well. Looks really good on that. Reading books is a different story, but comics looks pretty good on it.
Right.
So. Awesome. Well, Matt, it's been great fucking talking with you, man. I can't wait for the second novel to come out. And this, is it gonna be a trilogy, or do you continue on after this, or?
Yeah, it's got a bit of an open end to it, so.
Okay.
So yeah, there's definitely kind of scope there to do a third one that's already starting to sort of percolate.
Nice.
So
cool.
But a third one might be Full Moon 3 Wolfpack.
Nice. I am all down, man. Like a werewolf trilogy, that's up my alley. So can't wait to read the second novel. And it's been great talking with you. And I like to do this again, hopefully next year and stuff. We can talk about the next novel and all that goodness. So
yeah, that'd be great, man. Thanks ever so much for having me on.
I appreciate it, and you have yourself a good weekend.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
Take it easy.
Bye.